Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our webinar this morning. I can see that we've got attendees that are checking in and the numbers are rising nicely. So do just settle yourselves in, put your headphones on or whatever to make yourself comfortable, and we will be starting in just a couple of minutes' time once we've got a good number of people in and settled. I hope everybody's well. As I said, we'll come back to you in just a minute or two. Thank you. So we've actually got a full house booked in today. So we're hoping for around about 100 people on the webinar, and I can see that we're approaching those sorts of numbers. So as I said, just give it a minute or two, and we'll start the formal part of the meeting. It's okay to clear your throat.
Yeah, much better.
No, that's right. Okay, I think that's probably a good prompt for us to start. So let me just start by wishing everybody a very, very good morning to this Sun Lawyers webinar. You're all very welcome to join us here today for the subject of protecting property, family and assets in Spain. My name, as you can see on the screen, is Nick Shrimpton. I'm the marketing manager at Sun Lawyers. I'm here in the UK and I'm your host for today's webinar. As I said, in the previous world, which was the old normal, if we were all in a room, it would be pretty much a full house. We've had 100 people book on the webinar, which is fantastic and hopefully shows the degree of interest in some of the topics that we're going to cover off for you in the next hour or so. So what the plan is to do today is, as I said, to touch on what we think are some of the important issues around Spanish property, whether that's living or rental, family and taxes out there in Spain as well. And one of the things that we're all starting to realise, and maybe you can relate to it as well, whether you've been in lockdown in the UK or in Spain or perhaps elsewhere, is it's given us all time to think, hasn't it? And maybe that time to think has altered how we see our futures, how we plan our futures, and perhaps where we spend our time and who we spend our time with. It might be that, for example, you now want to spend more time in Spain or perhaps less time in Spain, and it doesn't particularly matter. The thing is that if having had that time to think, there are things that you want to do. Some of them might be things you want to do by choice, for example, making a Spanish will now. Others may be driven more by time and necessity, for example, applying for a residencia, which I know is one of the things that many people have asked about, and we're going to cover off for you because the clock is ticking in relation to that. The encouraging news is that you can do all of this now. The de-escalation processes that are happening in Spain mean that each of the Sun Lawyers offices up and down the Costa Blanca is now open. We're progressing new matters and doing things on behalf of our clients. The offices are open for meetings made by prior appointment, I would just add. Now I know that some, as I said, are in Spain, probably the majority, and others are going to be in the UK. And for those who are probably looking out, who are looking to come out to Spain at perhaps the earliest opportunity, which looks for us like sometime shortly after the 1st of July, depending on what the arrangements are. I hear talk about air bridges, etc. What we would say is, if you feel you are in the UK and you want an appointment with us out in Spain, to not wait until you land to make that appointment. When you know you're coming, please do reach out and make sure we can get that appointment in the diary for you if you're in the UK and coming to Spain. So as I said, the objective of today's session is about flagging up these relevant issues that you've been thinking about, that maybe will prompt you to think about. And as I said, residencia is very much top of that list, because if you want residencia, the time to act is really now. And what we would say is, for anything, contact us. The first meeting that you would have before proceeding is always free. So if there's something that you want to do, something that you're unsure about, or something that you want to know more about, you can see the team here, and there are others. They're all here and ready and willing to help. So here's how we're going to run the session. We're going to do a brief overview from the Sun Lawyers expert team. I think we'll cover off about 8 separate areas briefly, and I'll introduce them to you all in a moment. They're all sitting there very pensive, as you can see.
Yeah.
We've had a number of questions that have been put forward as part of the registration. Thank you for doing those, and we'll answer some of those for you. And then towards the end, we'll do more of a sort of a quick fire question and answer session. So you should see at the bottom of the screen, if you run your cursor over the bottom, a Q&A box that pops up. So any questions that come into your head while we're doing the talks, feel free to put those through to us, and we'll try to answer those as best we can towards the end. So onto our esteemed expert panel. They're all from different Sun Lawyers offices, and we'll start by introducing, I think, Aimee Stokes is up in Javier. Aimee, say hi.
Hi.
I hope you're well today. You've got a fairly heavy workload today, haven't you? Because you're doing residencia, tourist license, and non-resident tax. So
that's correct.
I think you're first up, so we'll come back to you shortly. Then in Calpe in the north again, we've got Joanna Graham. Hi, Joanna.
Hi, everybody. Good morning.
How are you? You well?
Wonderful.
Excellent.
Couldn't be better. The sun is shining.
Yes, in fact, in the UK, we're back to a typical English summer, I'm afraid. Yeah, wills and inheritance, you'll be hearing from Joanna on. Then next, we've got Jose Maria, who's the senior partner at Sun Lawyers. Morning, Jose.
Hello. Good morning to everyone.
Nice to be
speaking to you. Very good. Very good.
Excellent.
Very excited.
Good. And you'll be talking to us about missold mortgages and lost deposits. And then last but not least, morning to Angie McMillan. Hi, Angie.
Good morning.
Angie's in Cabaroig in the south of the Costa Blanca, and she'll be talking about selling Spanish property. So I think we're just about ready to get started. And before I hand over to Aimee, we're just going to do a quick poll. We're interested to sort of see who, if you live in Spain, has already got their residencia card or not. So I'm just going to click on polling, and that should come up on the screen. So it'll just be interesting for us to see who's got residencia at the moment and who hasn't. Perhaps we'll sort of come back to that. In the meantime, Aimee, why don't you take it from the top and do residencias for us, please?
Of course. Now, if you're new to Spain, you have probably heard of people talking about residencia or being a resident. I'm not sure if you guys can see me, sorry.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah?
I hear you.
Okay, perfect, yeah. Perfect. So residency is your green credit card size card or a green A4 paper proving that you are a resident of Spain. This means that you spend more than 183 days a year here. If you're new to living in Spain or you've just never got round to doing your residencia, it is extremely important that you get the correct documents for living in Spain, especially with Brexit looming even quicker around the corner. It all may seem a bit daunting, but let me just briefly explain the main things that you are going to need, okay, to apply for the residencia. The main two things are proof of income and proof of medical insurance or cover. Why these two things? Because the Spanish government want confirmation of proof that you are able to cover your own costs, and you're not going to be a burden on the state, really, okay? So the proof of income and the medical care are broken down into subcategories of workers or unemployed, so that's pensioners, early retirees also. If you're a worker here in Spain, then you will need to show a copy of your work contract, or if you're self-employed, then your paperwork. If you're a worker here, then you are paying into the system, and that means you're receiving also a wage. This is your proof of income, and it also means that you're entitled to Spanish healthcare because you're paying into the system. So you do not need to prove any further medical insurance. If you're unemployed, then you will need to prove income and medical insurance or cover. Proof of income, we found that the amounts vary depending on the region that you're applying for the residencia, as each immigration office reads into the requirements differently or have their own adaptation of this. We can advise on specifications of funds and the requirements needed for each region for successfully obtaining your residencia. For the medical insurance cover part, you will need either private health insurance or a S1 form. This was previously known as the E121 form. You will also need to be registered on the Padron. This is what we call the census in the UK, at the town hall, the village where you bought your property or you are renting. Yes, if you're renting, you can also obtain residencia. Each person applying for the residencia has to be present at their appointment at the police station. So just going back to the main two things on being with the proof of income and the medical care, these are the two things that you should be getting into place now. You really should be transferring your funds into your Spanish account now to make sure that you are ready and that you have in your account 3 months prior to your appointment for your residencia. Again, mentioning Brexit, it is looming, so anybody wanting to become a resident here in Spain before the deadline, you need to act now.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. The poll result is interesting. It looks like 90% of people have yet to get a residencia card. So as you said, absolutely, it's act now. We do expect to see, as we get nearer towards the end of the year, almost like a rush for applications, and you do want to make sure that you get in before that. Even if you're actually listening to us in the UK, there are things you can start to do now. So what we would say is, if that's something that you want to do, please do contact us now and we can start to work with you to progress that. So thank you, Aimee. We'll come back to you a little bit later. Joanna, before I come to you, I'm just going to do our second poll. We've only got two, so it's just they both happen to be at the top of the order. And this one is about wills this time, which we're going to come on to in a second. And the question is a simple one. Do you have a Spanish will? Yes or no? So perhaps you could let us know your thoughts on that one. And whilst you're casting your vote one way or the other, Joanna, over to you, please.
Okay, so I'm just going to cover the reasons why you should have a Spanish will in place. So the big question that I get from clients is, well, I've got a UK will in place, or I've got my American will in place. So do I need a Spanish will? The answer to that is not having a Spanish will is going to make it all very complicated for your spouse, your children, yourself, or whoever the inheritor is, if only using the UK will to inherit the Spanish assets. Why is it complicated? Well, because your family or yourself will have to deal with inheritance of Spanish assets by using a UK will. And that is going to take a lot longer, and it's going to be more costly to conclude the whole inheritance process. This is because when we're using a UK will, we have to have UK probate documents. So in the UK, you're going to have to apply for UK probate. You're going to have to get the UK probate apostilled. You're going to have to get the UK probate and the will all translated officially. Now, UK probate can take months. So there's the time that's spent dealing with the UK, money, the apostille, the translations. This costs money. It's not cheap. So we've spent money and we've spent time that wouldn't be necessary if you had a Spanish will in place. Now, whether there's a Spanish will in place or not, we still have to apply for Spanish probate. So if we're only needing to work with a Spanish will, we go straight to Spanish probate and we can eliminate out of the equation anything to do with UK probate. We don't need it. You don't need to spend that money. You don't need to waste all that time. We just get on with it with the Spanish will, which can be done in about 2 months, more or less, the whole thing. And in a time of grieving and all that, you don't want to be having to mess about, let's say. So please, it is so important for anybody who's going to have to deal with an inheritance, the people that have been left behind, it's important that it's as easy as possible. And how do you do that? Have a Spanish will to cover your Spanish assets, please.
Thank you for that, Joanna. And I think none of us want to sort of face up to some of these things, but the last 3 months, I think, has brought it into sharp focus. The poll results, if for interest, do you have a Spanish will? 40% yes, 60% no. So hopefully that might give people some food for thought. Thanks, Joanna. We'll come back to you again shortly. Now we'll go back to Aimee for a bit on non-resident tax. Aimee, to you again, please.
Okay, well, this is a tax for those who A, do not reside in Spain, so you are not a resident here, and B, you are a homeowner. So any renters, this does not affect you. In the eyes of the Spanish authorities, you derive a benefit from owning a property here in Spain, and therefore you have to pay an imputed income tax. This tax is paid in arrears, so now in 2020, it's last year's 2019 tax bill that is owed. With the amount of days that you have owned the property in 2019, together with the cadastral value of the property, is how we are able to obtain the tax amount that is due. You have until the end of the year to pay the tax, and we are already in full campaign with all of our non-resident clients getting all of these taxes sorted. Normally it is only a couple of €100, so it's not a high tax, okay? So don't worry, it's not too high. But it is very important to pay this bill, especially as people have found out when they then go on to sell the property. We have found that a lot of people were not informed of this tax or weren't advised when they purchased the property. But please don't seem intimidated by this, as we're here to help you, and we can get this amount calculated and submitted to the tax office for you very simply, just coming in with a couple of documentation that we asked for, and we can get it all sorted for you.
Good stuff. Thank you for that. I can see we've got questions coming in, and that's lovely. Thank you for those. As I said, we're just going to run through each of these short talks, then come on to the questions at the end. So do keep them coming in. We'll go back to Joanna now for a slot on inheritance, please.
Okay, so regarding inheritance, the main question in most people's minds is the inheritance tax. It's the first thing they think of. And it is a myth that I hear very often, that people are told by neighbours, by friends, that the inheritance tax is 40% of the value. That's just not true. So to work out the inheritance tax, we have to take into consideration the region where the assets are situated. Every region in Spain have their own laws on inheritance tax. So here in our area, which is the Valencian community, which is where all our son lawyers' offices are based, there is a threshold of €100,000 for your spouse, for your children, and for your parents. This means that the first 100,000 of the value is tax-free. Then the rest of the value, here in Valencia, we have very large reductions on the remaining taxable amount, up to 99% of a reduction. So you end up paying very little tax, being the spouse, being the children, or being the parents, okay? So that's first, out of the way. Secondly, whatever the assets are, be it property, be it cars, vehicles, and bank accounts, inheritance at the end of the day is signed in front of a Spanish notary. But it's up to us, your lawyer, to get all the correct documentation for the property, all the certificates for the bank accounts, all the correct documentation for the vehicle, and present this to the notary. We have to give all the information to the notary. The notary is there to draw up the deed. So then he draws up the deed and we sign at the notary. Then, obviously, if there's a property involved, this property has to have its title changed. So it's up to us to get the deeds to the land registry where the property is situated and get that title changed over. Okay, that's first. And then the biggie, the one that causes a bit of hassle, let's say, for people, is the freezing of bank accounts. You might have heard about this, and it's true. The bank will freeze your bank account. So it's up to us as your lawyer to get that unblocked as soon as we can. And we do that by liaising with the bank, providing the documentation required, the tax forms paid, and liaising with the bank to just finally unblock this account so you can have access to it. And all that said and done, and the steps and that's nothing for you to worry about, because that's what some lawyers is here for. That's what we do, to take the worry out of the equation for you. So there you go.
Very good.
Thanks very much. Very good. We've got a couple of questions. We'll come back to those shortly, if we may, Joanna. But thank you for now.
Yeah.
Aimee, I think you're on. It's tourist license next, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay. Yeah. Well, a tourist license is needed if you are planning on renting your property out for any type of short-term rent. So this means any period less than a year. All properties that are for short-term rents should have a visible plaque showing the license number on the property. And this number should also be on all websites and platforms that you are marketing the property on. This is to show that it is a legal rental. There are various documents that are needed in the application for a tourist license, including the habitation certificate. This is to prove that the property meets all standards needed to be able to live in that property. We can obtain all the certificates for you, don't worry, that's what we're here for, okay? So we then need to obtain at the town hall of where the property is located a compatibility certificate. Once we have this document together with the remaining documents, we can then apply to the Valencian government for the license. Once we have the license, this then needs to be registered with the police or Guardia Civil. They can then issue you with the code and a password. With the code and the password, you log on to your website, what is set up by the Guardia Civil, and you have to add the details of all guests or tenants that are above the age of 16 that are staying in your property. This means that it works just like a hotel. All tenants and guests have to show their passports. We are able to help with obtaining the license from start to finish. So including any certificates, documentation needed, all the way to registering the property with the police for you, okay? And obtaining the code and password. So anything like that, please do not hesitate. We can help. That's what we're here for.
Well done, nice one, thank you. Thank you for that. So Jose Maria and Angie have been waiting patiently. It's their turn now, starting with Jose Maria and lost deposits, if you wouldn't mind, please.
Yes, well, thank you, Nick. Well, this is obviously a procedure that needs to go to court. Basically, because if you made payments buying an off-plan property in Spain and lost your money, some lawyers, or obviously our legal team, may be able to get your deposit back without an individual bank guarantee. Recent legislation passed by the Spanish Supreme Court in Madrid has ruled in favor of the home buyer, or obviously the buyers who bought that property at the time being, has created an opportunity to reclaim off-plan property deposits. Banks in Spain will not be liable to refund money which was paid and lost by home buyers, whether the developer or builder failed to complete their properties. The refund can be claimed regardless of whether or not a bank guarantee was in place, and obviously if the developer went into bankruptcy or not. So it is very important that if you have bought a property in the last years, you've got a contract, you have obviously all the proof of that transfers made to the developers, you come to see us because there is a big chance to claim your money back. Even so, if you already went to court to try to recover your deposit. You probably sued the property developer, and most property developers went, as I said, into bankruptcy, so they went into liquidation. So the cause of that action was useless in most cases. So with this, new Spanish Supreme Court allows you to take action against developers, and in this case against the bank, who are responsible for all the deposits or payments made to the developer. Some lawyers or our legal team have been successful in the last years with big developers very well named in the area, like Polaris World, Grupo San Antonio, Corvera Golf, Tres Molinos Resort. So the procedure is, as I said, you'll need to do a power of attorney for us to act in court, obviously have the contract, original contract, and proof of all the transfers made to that developer. And as I said, I'm pretty sure and 100% confident that we'll get your money back. So you are more than welcome to come and meet me or come and meet our legal team.
Thank you for that. Thanks, Jose. We'll come back to you in a second. Angie, so we had a number of questions from people who are now considering selling their Spanish property. So please take it away, the sale process, if you would mind.
Okay, good, because I would like to explain the importance of a property sale, because a lot of people tend to think that the sale process is less important than the purchase, but there are a few factors involved that could complicate matters. So if you have sold your property, that means you have a buyer and he's willing to go ahead and pay a deposit, then it is the right moment to contact us. We will know the right steps and procedures in order to guarantee a successful completion on your sale. So from the first step, which is the deposit payment, to the last one, completion, we will lead you into the right direction, especially with regards to any possible debts that you may not be aware of. Charges against your property, that mortgage that you finished paying 10 years ago and you thought it was totally cancelled, or the possibilities of decreasing your tax gain by offsetting some costs. Just to briefly put you in the picture, okay, on the process. Firstly, we will check to make sure you have the right paperwork in order to sell the property. And don't worry if you haven't got everything you need, because we can always obtain duplicates or new paperwork for the sale. So both lawyers, ourselves, and the buyer solicitor will do a quick search by requesting a report to the land registry office. So if everything is fine, after that, a contract will be exchanged in between both parties. Once the contract has been signed, the deposit will be paid to you. So before the process carries on, a granting of a power of attorney will be suggested and organized by us to make sure that we can act on your behalf in the sale. After this, the rest of the searches will take place, and that will be to check if there are any outstanding debts or pending bills, which the buyer solicitor will retain if there are any. Certificates will be also prepared by an architect if you don't have them in place. That will be, for example, the energy certificate or the habitation certificate. Also, a certificate will be obtained by, with the administrators to prove that you are up to date with your community fees. Very important. We will check your taxes and calculate if you're making a gain or a loss. All non-resident taxes are subject to a 3% retention on a sale. So if you're making a loss and you are up to date with your non-resident taxes, which is what we emphasize, what Aimee emphasized before, we will claim the 3% on your behalf. And if you're making a gain, invoices will be checked to decrease your tax liability. So finally, on completion, we will strongly recommend you to use a currency company to avoid extra charges and commissions. And this will be organized for you so you don't have to worry about anything. After completion, all direct debits will be cancelled, and also your bank account if needed. So as you can see, having a lawyer who knows the exact process and the procedures involved could make a big difference.
Absolutely. Thank
Indeed.
you for that. Okay, so going on to the last of the formal talks now, and we're running nicely to time, I'm pleased to say. So, Jose, back to you then on the subject of missold mortgages, please.
Yes. Well, missold mortgages, and also called mortgage floor clauses, because most of you probably have heard this back in the UK or worldwide. So basically, what you need to do is, well, check, or we can do that for you, check if your Spanish mortgage has this floor clause on the deeds. So recent European Court of Justice has ruled that banks who sold Spanish mortgage with what we call this floor clause or cláusula suelo did so illegally, and now will have to refund mortgage holders any interest that they were overcharged or overpaid during the period. Okay, so in May 2013, Spain Supreme Court, as I said, ruled that the mortgages were abusive, and banks were not initially ordered to refund customers. In April 2016, in a Madrid judge statement or sentence, they decreed that 40% of Spanish biggest lenders had to pay back borrowers that extra interest paid on mortgages dating back 2013. So basically, I would suggest or advise that if you have a Spanish mortgage and you have been charged regularly the same fee during the last months or years, it's very important that a lawyer or our legal team, as myself, will need to check this mortgage deed to see if you have this mortgage clause or cláusula suelo. Basically, this mortgage clause has been offered by banks, for example, very well named in Spain, like BBVA, Banco Sabadell, CaixaBank, Cajamar, Banco Popular, Bankia, and the overage of this clause adds an extra 3,000 euros a year to mortgages, making the overage claim of 9,000 euros claims. So, as I said, it's important that somebody, as your lawyer, your solicitor, checks if your mortgages have this clause and start legal action. As I said during my interview regarding a lost deposits, you'll need to make a power of attorney so we can act in court, and then obviously, well, be a bit patient because, well, it is a procedure that needs to go, as I said, through court, and it normally takes between 8 to 12 months. But banks are paying back all this extra interest overcharged to you, and we've been successful in the last months with many clients.
Super, thank you. I guess what you say is that even if people aren't sure where they stand, come and see you and we can help you find out.
Yes, well, we are offering a first free consultation.
Yeah.
So if they are here in Spain, they can arrange an appointment and come and meet me. If not, they can even send the deeds, or if we've got the deeds in our system, we can check for them and obviously see if there is any extra interest to be claimed to the bank.
Lovely. Thank you for that. Okay, good. So that takes us through sort of the more presentation element of the webinar. Now on to the questions side. So what we've got is we've got some questions that were asked as part of the registration, and we'll run through those quickly and then we'll come on to the Q&A. So I think we'll do it by subject matter, going back to the top with Residencia. Aimee, I've got a couple of questions here for you. The first one from Stuart Drummond. Stuart says, I lost my green Residencia card while moving house. How do I get a new card?
Okay, well, you will need to go to the police station to make a denuncia statement. With this denuncia, we can then obtain an appointment at the Extranjería office, so the immigration office, to obtain a duplicate. This is all if the residencia is more than 5 years old. If it's less than 5 years old, then you have to submit all documents as if it was a new application.
Okay, thank you for that. The next one on the same topic or similar topic from Sophia Malik says, is my NIE card classified as residencia? I've had it for 12 years, but have never lived in Spain for more than 3 months.
No. The NIE number is your national identification number as a foreigner. So this is your ID and your tax number, okay? And the residencia is the proof of country where you reside. The NIE is normally a white A4 piece of paper. The residencia can be as said before, a green A4 piece of paper or a credit card size green card. Okay, you have to apply to become a resident in Spain. So you have to apply for the residencia with the before mentioned documentation. So unfortunately, no.
Unfortunately, no. Okay. And then John Evans says, if you apply for residencia before the 31st of December, so before the Brexit deadline, will you still be accepted under the old rules if it isn't fully completed until after the 31st of December?
Okay, well, when you go to your appointment at the immigration office, if all documents are correct and there are no issues, you'll be presented then and there with your residencia card. So as long as the appointment is before the Brexit deadline, there shouldn't be a problem whatsoever because you will obtain it then and there. Okay,
all right. Good. Thank you for now. Have a glass of water. I suspect a few of the Q&As might be coming back to you. But thanks for now. Joanne, a couple of ones on wills, if I may. The first one from Dale Anderson, who says, when I make a will in Spain, should it be reflective of my will in England?
Okay. No, is the answer to that. Let me explain why. When you make your UK will in England, you're going to leave your UK assets to whoever you choose. Well, it's exactly the same when you draw up your Spanish will. Regardless of who you've left your assets to in the UK, you can leave your assets in Spain to whoever you want. So maybe you've left your UK assets to a sister and an auntie and the wife and the children. But here you just want to leave the Spanish property, bank account, etc. to the wife and children. You can do what you want. What we do add into your Spanish will is the clause to say that it's formed under UK law, because under UK law we can leave our assets to who we choose. We can leave people out, we can leave children out. Under Spanish law, it's more dictated as to who you're allowed and how much you're allowed to leave to each family member. So for this reason, we'll add into the Spanish will that it's under UK law. So you can leave it to who you want, and you can use the UK law in your Spanish will.
Okay, that sounds clear to me, thank you. And the second one for you for now is Peter Brown asks, as I'm an Irish citizen resident in Ireland, I've got a property in Spain, do I have to make a separate will in Spain?
I go back to what I said at the very beginning with people saying, do I need a will in Spain? You've got your Irish will in place, that's great. You've got Spanish assets here in Spain. Please make a Spanish will. The reasons, as stated before, it's going to make everything less complicated for who you're leaving behind to deal with this. If we're going to have to deal with an Irish will, it's the same as I said before. It's probate, it's translations, it's time, it's money that you don't need to go through if you have a Spanish will in place.
Okay, fine, perfect, perfecto. Good, thanks for now, thank you. Angie, I'm going to come on to you. I've got a question in front of me here, but also one from the same person on the chat as well. So perhaps I can ask them both to you, from Ruben Barreto.
Barreto, yes.
Barreto. The first one he asks is upon sale of a property in Spain, what taxes are payable? I'm just going to call up the second one he's just sent through on the chat as well. Let's just see what this says. In order to sell a property in Spain, would we need to be present in Spain in order to complete the deal if we leave the UK? So two questions. One is what taxes are payable upon sale, and the second one is, can we complete the sale from the UK of our Spanish property?
Good. I believe also Catherine Wood raised a similar question about how to get the proceeds of her house sale in Spain to her country. So I'm going to explain both things together. Basically, you know, one of the first things to be done once the property has been sold is something that we insist, as much as we insist on the taxes, we do insist in the power of attorney, because this will guarantee that the wholesale can be done remotely without the need of the presence of the client in Spain. We can do absolutely everything on the client's behalf with the power of attorney. We can liaise with the buyer solicitor. We can obtain documents. We can obtain duplicates. We can organize certificates. We can go to the notary to complete. We can close the bank account on their behalf. We can cancel the direct debits. So everything can be done remotely with the power of attorney. But also, this is a question that a lot of people ask me as well, that they're worried about how am I going to get the funds over to my country, because I'm not there, I don't have online banking, whatever. So finally, and once the process has been completed, we will always advise the clients to use a currency company to get the money across, because it will make such a big save on bank charges and commissions, and it will make a huge difference for them. So that is basically the process and the proceeds of getting everything organized on their behalf. But taxes, okay?
Yeah.
All non-resident sellers are subject to a 3% tax retention that could be refunded if they are making a loss with their sale, and also if they are up to date with the non-resident tax. This is why we insist so much on these taxes to be up to date, because obviously it's one of the first requests from the tax office in order to refund the retention. So there's another side as well. It could be that you're making a gain and you're not making a loss, and obviously if you're making a gain, the tax authorities will keep that 3%, but we can try to decrease your tax liability by taking invoices and trying to offset these costs towards the tax gain. Also, there is another tax, which is a council tax, and it's called plusvalia, which is based in the land value increase, and it is paid to the council authorities. First, the payment has to be done, and after the payment has been done, we could claim this money to be refunded as well, if you're also making a loss, because there is a recent sentence from 2017 from the Supreme High Court that states that the plusvalia should only be applicable if there is a capital gain in the sale.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, we're going to come on to the more of a quick fire Q&A. We'll get round to as many as we can in the next 10 minutes or so. Rest assured, if we haven't managed to answer your question, if we haven't got round to it, it's just because we've got so many, but we will follow everything up. So if there's something that we haven't dealt with, something we haven't got round to, we will follow up with you directly to ensure that your query, your concern is 100% adequately answered to your satisfaction. But for now, Aimee, I'm going to come to you for hopefully a few quick ones if you want. I've got a few on tourist license. What's happening with tourist license, and how long does it take to get one at the moment?
Okay, well, they're still being issued. I received one just last week, so they are taking a little bit longer, but this is due to lockdown, unfortunately. Okay, so yeah. As we're coming out of lockdown, more staff are going back to the public and government offices, so then more certificates are getting issued, but at the moment it is taking a little bit longer, but they are coming slowly but surely. And then how long does it take? It varies, okay? It varies on the time that the town Hall takes to issue the compatibility certificate. Normally, for the applicants that I deal with in the north of the Costa Blanca, once I have that compatibility certificate and present the application to the Valencian government, I normally receive the license within about a week. But as I said, it all depends on how long it takes to obtain the compatibility certificate, and that's the town hall.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. I'm going to stay with you if I may. Stephen Valelli says, I live in Northern Ireland and have both British and Irish passport. Does the time limit to apply for residencia by the end of 2020 apply to me if I use my Irish nationality?
If you are to apply with your UK passport, then Brexit, the deadline does affect you. If you are to apply with your Irish passport, then it will not affect you, because the Irish passport is still going to be an EU passport. Okay, so that on an Irish passport, it won't affect.
Okay, good stuff. Hazel Penman, and this is a good question, I think. She says, and I think it's probably the last one for you, Aimee, for a while, maybe.
Okay.
she says, can we arrange a virtual appointment? Obviously, it's a sensible question, with Sun Lawyers using Zoom or similar to discuss our needs and to start proceedings without needing to travel to Spain at the moment?
Yeah, of course. You know, we've been contacting clients and having telephone meetings with clients during the whole of the lockdown. So if they would like to see us face to face, then I'm sure we can either do a Zoom or Skype, or if a phone call's sufficient, wouldn't be a problem whatsoever. We're here to help, and if that means that we have to use a bit more technological advances on it to be able to get our meetings across, absolutely not a problem. Yeah,
and hopefully we're showing in this forum actually how easy it is to do, aren't we? So completely. Okay. This next one's on residencia, but if somebody else wants to put their hand up, feel free. It's from Basil, and he says, when you mention getting funds into your account, can you put a lump sum in, or does it need to be a monthly payment into the account?
I'll take it and it's not a problem. It's not a problem. It's not a problem at all. It all depends. And as I said, it all depends on the region and what immigration office, how they read into it. For example, in Denia, what's in this area here, they prefer to see monthly income. Whereas in Alicante, they like to see a lump sum, minimum amount, the amount that they state. So it all depends. So if the client could possibly contact us, or we can then contact them to find out where they're planning on purchasing or where they already have a property, we can then give them the specifications of that area and what their immigration office is going to ask for the requirements to obtain the residencia. So it all depends on where they're looking at or where they have already purchased.
Okay. Joanna, are you ready for one on wills?
Yes, of course.
Here we go. Hazel says, is there a need to amend a UK will where the provisions of a newly created Spanish will change terms or could be inconsistent with the UK will, such as a change of beneficiaries?
Okay, well, as I said to the answer to a previous question, you can leave in your UK will to whoever you wish, and your Spanish will to different people of the family. Okay, that's your choice. That's not a problem. What the Spanish notary will tell you, so I'm going to pre-warn you, is that your Spanish will run parallel to your English will. It won't override it. But once you've made a Spanish will, if you then, after the fact, go to try and change your English will, then you must notify your solicitor in England that it is to run parallel with a Spanish will that you already have in place. Why? Because otherwise your English will state it's your last will and testament, and that will override anything worldwide. So that's the point we make. But you know, we'll tell you about that when you're signing your English will. So the answer is do what you want on your English will and do something totally different on your Spanish will. They'll run parallel.
Sure. Thank you for that. Oh, and one more coming your way as well, as you did so well with that one. Karen says, is a Spanish will complicated if we have children from different relationships?
Not at all, because again, we're going to do the Spanish will under UK law, i.e. you can put in your Spanish will to whoever you wish, but be it children from previous relationships, be it the neighbour down the road, it doesn't matter, it's your choice because under UK law.
Okay, great. Who'd like to take this one? Under current rules, what is the amount of time I can spend in Spain as a non-resident? Is it a rolling time or fixed time?
Who would like to? Well, I can do that.
Yeah, please do, Jose.
Answer. Well, obviously, being part of nowadays of the European Union, any non-resident can travel to Spain and spend as many time as they wish. There's no limits in spending time in Spain at the current situation. So, you know, they can come over and spend as many time as they wish, as I said.
Okay. Message here from Peter Brown. Sorry you lost your internet connection, Peter. I'm glad you're back with us. What Peter asks is, we will not be resident in Spain full time, and so we will want to rent out our property for part of the year. Do we need a license to do this?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry, I just.
I saw that I saw everybody nodded.
Yeah. Yes. Because you're renting it out, the moment that you're doing a short-term rent, by law, you should have a tourist license. In fact, they are clamping down the last 2 years, I would say definitely. Last year, they clamped down so much. This is the tax authorities, the police, everybody. You should have your plaque on the outside of the property. Everywhere that you're renting, promoting, marketing it, has to have that number. You need a tourist license.
Good stuff. Thank you for that. Got a question, another question for you, Joanna, from Beverly, who asks, you were talking about frozen bank accounts, weren't you? If a bank account is frozen, will direct debit still be paid?
That's a good question. And the answer is yes. By law, the bank has to honour all the direct debits. Obviously, you need to have money in the account. So with the account being blocked, doesn't mean you can't put money in and fund the account. That's what you must do. What you won't be able to do is take money out. That's where the blockage is. So funding the account, they will honour all direct debits. So you don't need to worry about electric getting cut off, bills not being paid. If there's money in the account, the bank will pay all direct debits. That is the law.
That is the law. Okay. Thank you. We're jumping around a bit on subjects, I appreciate, but the questions are sort of coming in and I'm dealing with them in that order. We're back on tourist license again, and Chris says, we've got a property, but we only let it out to family and friends, and it's not for financial gain. And certainly they don't do any marketing of the property at all. Do we need a tourist license?
If you are obtaining money by letting your property out, then you should be, because that is classed in the eyes of the law that you are renting the property out on a short-term basis. You should have a tourist license, and you should be also declaring that income as well. One thing is, if you are lending your property and not making a financial gain or having, you know, any money crossing hands, that's one thing. But the moment that money crosses hands, it should be declared and also the tourist license in place.
So it's the monetary element, not the person element. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Thanks for that.
And I was going to add, Nick, sorry, yes.
No, please.
Because, there's a lot of people that think that, you know, at the end of the day, they can quit this tourist license. and they are very high fines. If obviously they caught you without a tourist license and the apartment or the property have been rented out, you know, we're talking about fines between 2,000 to 3,000 euros. So it is very important that obviously you have a property and you thinking or planning to rent it, you know, start the process to get this tourist license.
Great, thank you. I'm just looking at the time. I think what I'd like to do is sort of carry on for a little bit longer while people are still on here. We'll still deal with the questions. We may go a little bit beyond the hour, but I think while everyone's here, it seems to make sense of that situation. The next one is very specific, and it might be that actually we don't have an answer to hand, and if we don't, we'll come back to Stephen, who's asking this specific question. He's looking to retire to the Murcia region. Can we tell him how much income he needs to be going into his bank account monthly to be able to move? Now, I know the situation can alter region by region. Is that one that someone knows the answer to, or do we want to say to Stephen, we'll take it offline and go back to him?
Well, I would say we'll take it offline and go back to you, because what we'll do is we'll get one of our colleagues who deals with the Murcia region to contact you directly and give you all the information for that area.
Fine. Stephen, thank you for the question, and we'll follow up with you in good order afterwards. Here we go on to the next one from Hazel. She says, if we rent our house for a holiday let through the urbanisation, is there still a need for a tourist licence for a rental for a month each year?
Yes.
Nodding heads again. Yes, Hazel, there is.
Yeah.
It's the exact same as before.
Yeah.
The moment that it's a short-term rent, there should be a tourist licence there. The tourist licence doesn't cost a lot of money, okay, to obtain. So don't be thinking, oh, I've got to obtain this license from the government. It's going to cost, you know, lots and lots of money. It doesn't, okay? So just for that peace of mind, so that you're not going to get into any trouble at all, it's definitely worth getting it. And then if you decide, whereas before you might have been just renting it out for 1 month or to family and friends, it could then be that because you've got the tourist license, you then decide to actually let it out for a bit longer and maybe make some, you know, income on that property, because with the tourist license, you have that option to be able to do it legally.
Yeah, I was going to add, because recently I had a meeting with some English clients in this case, and they've sold their property here in Orihuela Costa, and they had this tourist license, and obviously the new buyers were more than pleased that, you know, they can rent out that apartment and obviously, you know, run through this tourist license, so they can obviously start renting it without, you know, going through, because there is a procedure that you'll need to inform that you are the new owner, but you have that tourist license already in place, so that makes things much easier.
Yes.
Okay.
Because the tourist license, the number, just to add real quick, is kind of like your ID for the property. Okay, so it doesn't go with the owner. It's not the owner's number, it's the house number. So the moment that that house has that number, that tourist license, that house has that tourist license. So as Jose's just said, doesn't matter if you change ownership of the property, you just change the name of the owner on the license, and the license is still valid. So it is a good thing for the little money that it's going to cost to get it in place, have it there, and it's also an asset then onto the property. Yeah.
I'm just running down the questions here. A lot of them are tourist license ones. I think what we'll do, rather than run through them all because they're detailed, we'll do a number of things afterwards as a follow-up. We'll do an FAQs. We'll put a whole amount of information together, which helps you guys out there have all of the answers to your tourist license questions. No problem there, and we'll do that, as I said, in a timely way. Just looking at time, try and wrap up with a few more if we can quickly. Mark Baker's got one on NIE cards, actually. He just says, we haven't received any NIE cards, only the number. How do we get the cards?
Okay, well, I can answer that.
Please do, Angie.
Right. Yes, okay, NIEs, right? The format of the NIE is not a card. A lot of people get confused with the residencia card because obviously the residency could either be on a A4 format, depending on the antiquity, or it could be in a credit card format. But NIE is a piece of paper, A4, okay, where you actually get the number and you get your details. But what is valid forever is the number. That never expires. That is valid forever. So let's say you've been given that piece of paper with the NI number and you lost it. You don't have to worry about that, because if you got the number written somewhere, we can get duplicates. We can get labels from the tax office. And let's say you've never been given the paper, you don't have a copy of your NIE, but if you have bills, for example, water and electric bills, and your NIE has been linked to these contracts, we can also get labels for the NIE or duplicates.
Okay, thank you. A couple of quick ones on power of attorney. Is the power of attorney only for a period of time, or is it in perpetuity, i.e. forever?
Okay, I can answer that as well, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
okay.
go for it.
Power of attorneys, the way we do it to basically simplify everything is we don't put a expiry date, simply because you never know when you're going to need our services in the future. You may buy a house now, but then you decide to sell in 2 or 3 years' time. If we put a expiry date, that is going to limit the objective of the purpose of the power of attorney. So we never put a expiry date unless the client specifically requests so. So the answer is no, they don't have expiry date, they're valid forever, and we can use the power of attorney that we have in place, basically.
Okay, and one more on the same subject, which I think I might be able to help with. It says, can I give power of attorney to apply for the padron and also residencia, or do I need to be in Spain for both? Now, you can start the power of attorney application process from the UK, can't you? So
yes,
if you...
Yes.
Aimee. Aimee.
You go, Angie.
Well, purely because he's mentioning about residency and padron, but I think, Aimee, you are the best one to answer about application process with the power of attorney, which we know the answer. But anyway, go on.
Okay, so power of attorney, as Nick said, we can start getting the ball rolling completely without you being here in Spain. Okay, a padron we can also do with the power of attorney, but obviously you have to have a rental contract or a property, okay, deeds showing that you are the owner or you are renting the property. So as long as you've got that, we can then also apply for your padron. NIE we can apply for with the power of attorney without you being here. You have to be here in person to apply for your residency. Okay, so we can do a lot of things, a huge amount of things with the power of attorney without you being here, but there are some specific things that you do have to be here in person.
Okay, good stuff. All right, I think I'm going to begin to do the wrap up. We've had a number of questions as well, perhaps unsurprisingly, about what our view is on how things will change after Brexit. I think the answer to that question is, well, we've probably all got a view, and at this stage it is just a view, and who knows what that view is going to actually sort of turn out to be. I think the key thing is that the moment we get any certainty, then we will share that information with you and begin to explain what the implications will be. I'm here in the UK, and you are hearing more about the Brexit topic again, and I think there's going to be some more narrative coming out from the government in the not too distant future, and we will make sure that once there's anything worth knowing and sharing on that subject, that we make sure that we get it out to you. So in terms of the wrap up from me, thank you very much for everybody for coming. I appreciate we've done a bit of a whistle-stop tour today on a number of sort of separate topics, and I think the point that we want to sort of leave you with, the key sort of takeaway, is whether we've prompted you to think about things you hadn't thought of, or whether there are things you definitely want to move forward with, or whether you're still unsure, is that please approach us, make an appointment to come and see us. We're here to help bring clarity to your thoughts, to help you understand, and at the end of the day, to help you make the right decisions for you. And coming to see us, there is never any cost for that meeting to help you get that clarity of thought. So please do reach out to us. And as I said, you will need to make an appointment. And in relation to Residencia, we can't apologize for laboring this point. If it's something that you want, now's the time to make contact with us. You really, you know, we're almost in the stage of every second counts. As I said, we've had a large number of questions, which hopefully reflects the fact that there are a large number of things happening. 45 questions on the Q&A, numerous ones beforehand. We've done our best to answer them for you. As I said, we will make sure that we come back to you individually by email. So if you have outstanding issues or questions, anything we can help with, as I said, the key thing is we are here to help. We quite enjoy doing these things. It may not always appear from our faces that we do, but you know, we're doing more of them and getting more comfortable with them. We will do more. We think there's great scope to get information out there. So if you found it useful, please do tell your family, neighbours and friends over a glass of wine or whatever it is that we're doing these. We want to be a force for good and a force to get important information out to the expat community in Spain. So finally, how to get in contact with us? Well, many of you are existing clients, so it may be that you know some of us on the webinar already, or perhaps others. But actually, the best way to process inquiries in the current situation, when we're sort of still in this sort of slightly sticky situation, is probably to send us an email in the first instance, and that email is to admin, ADMIN, at sun-lawyers.com. I'll say it again. I'll also put it in the chat as I speak as well, so you can get it there. Trying to do two things at once, which for me is always tricky. Admin at sunlawyers.com. So you've got that. Bear with me. .com. And then we can feed you through to the right person that can help. So I'm sure that before we sign off, the panel would want to say thank you very much.
Yes, thank you to everyone.
Thank you, panel.
Everybody, all
Thank
of
you.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Nick. It's been a pleasure. And as you already said, you know, we're here to help. I think in these difficult times, it's not easy to obviously, well, get information. So, you know, you're more than welcome, any of you, to send us an email, call us, arrange an appointment, and sit down with us and obviously go through all your questions or queries. All our offices are open. We're aiming to obviously give more advice to more people. And at the end of the day, you come to Spain to, you know, to enjoy your new lifestyle. So we're here for that.
Brilliant. Thank you for all of your time. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, attendees. And have a very enjoyable rest of the day. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.